Day 4, last day of construction, first day of finishing. Alright, the second thing I wanted to report was that I'm done with all the woodworking. I'm done with all of the, tinkering and building and cutting parts. By the way, this butternut stuff here, it doesn't take a router bit very well, but it does sand smooth very easily. This stuff, this 3M sandpaper that I got like as a sample pack from somewhere some long time ago, is awesome. I've never used this before until just now. It's 3M P150 PH6. It's got some kind of a flexible backing. It's not the same thing as regular sandpaper. No, it doesn't really tear. It just sort of stretches. Oh man, I love it. I'm gonna get more of this. I've never used a sandpaper that worked like this works. And when you're trying to use, a piece of sandpaper to go over a curve like this is perfect. I cannot say enough good things about it. I do this enough to get sponsors. Anyway, if you've been frustrated with sandpaper the way I have and just thought that it was just a part of doing woodworking and that you just had to learn to live with it, you don't have to anymore. Find this flexible stuff, whatever they call it. I don't know what the product is called, but it's made by 3M, and I'm assuming it probably comes in grits other than 150. Whew, stuff is awesome. I should name all these videos Woodworking, a Cautionary Tale.
Let me explain.
What I mean. I'll explain by talking to the camera instead of looking over my shoulder at this thing. I don't know if this is a woodworking thing or a Frank thing, but I tend sometimes to obsess over details in a weird way. So when I was constructing this thing, I really had in mind what we ended up with from the beginning. A couple of changes were made along the way, but pretty much what I have here was the original plan. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's good, nothing wrong with that. Sometimes I have no idea what I'm gonna do. I just kind of jump into it and let it happen. Other times I actually use plans and then modify them slightly. I almost never build anything exactly according to plan. It's the same way I cook. Anyway, so when I started the build, I already knew what I wanted to do, so I didn't really waste too much time figuring that out. However, I did want to do it quickly. So, by the way, this is day 5, and we're done building, and now I'm obsessing. So, I guess the cautionary tale is, if you're willing to speed things up a little bit and not take your time on certain aspects of the construction phase, but you're still sort of wanting it to be an exact certain way, or you want things to be as perfect in the final result, as possible, maybe it would be better to take more time during that construction phase, so that when you get to the phase I'm in now, you don't have to obsess over as many details. In my specific case, I've got tiny little gaps here and there in some of my joinery, which at first I was like, yeah, that's fine. It's functional, it's got a really good fit, it kind of adds to the rustic flair of the whole thing. And then of course, when it was all put together, I was like, nope, don't like it. I want to make everything look smooth and perfect. So now I started to fill in some of those little tiny gaps and things. So last night I was using some of my West Systems epoxy and some of this trans tint dye here to color it, and I was filling in some of the voids and some of the blowout areas which had occurred during the build phase. No big deal. But then I started putting epoxy in other places which I had never planned on putting it, and thinking, well, if I got this stuff out, I might as well use it to kind of fill in this little crack here and this little hole here and stuff like that. And before you know it, I kind of started obsessing over some of those details. Now, if this were summertime, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but it being wintertime, my epoxy is taking forever to harden and cure. And it's a little tacky still right here, where if this were in the summertime, it would have already hardened and cured, probably within a couple of hours. Well, maybe not cured in a couple of hours, but it would have been probably much less tacky. It has now been 6 or 7 hours since the last bit of epoxy was applied. So that's what we're doing now, is we're just doing all those little tiny finishing cosmetic details. And enough talking. Okay, I'm behind the camera, but check this out. What we have here, if you look closely, is an imbalance, okay? So I'll see if I can demonstrate it with this shim. If I take the shim, I can slide, well, this is too thick. How about this expired debit card? If I take this expired debit card, and you can use any debit card or credit card you want for this demonstration. It doesn't have to be a Navy Federal one. I can slide it underneath. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a wobble, which I talked about at the beginning. I got one on this back leg too. Actually, if I didn't have these shims in place, it would just be this leg on the ground, so to speak, and this leg sticking up. So what I've done is I've shimmed it in order to find sort of the break-even point between these two legs. All right, and I'm going to use this tape to wrap around the leg, and I'm gonna kind of even it up with this table surface here on both these corners. Then I'm gonna pour epoxy into this area created by the tape, the well, so to speak, and I'm going to artificially create levelness between those 2 points. Okay, as you can see, I've got tape here, and I've wrapped it around 3 sides. I can't wrap it around 4 sides because of the arch, you know, right here is not gonna let me go around. So I've also done it on that back leg. Now I'm gonna flip it over and kind of finish creating this place that will hold the epoxy, and then we'll pour some epoxy. Okay, so now you see what I've done here. Okay, so I'd like to point out something about what we have here. When you do this kind of thing, you have to make sure your tape has got a good bond to the wood and that it quote unquote seals it. What you don't want to do is allow any air gaps in here. This will be sanded down a little bit once it's cured and hardened. And then be very, very, very careful pouring this. And I just wanted to point out that sometimes, despite your best efforts, things don't always turn out the way you had hoped. It'll clean up. I'm not too worried about it. It's just annoying that I have to clean it up, and I was trying to avoid that.